Hey everybody, welcome. Welcome to the Toronto Mobile Developers stream. Thanks for tuning in. It's going to be just me, it looks like, today. I don't think Daniel can make it. We'll see if he ends up joining. Let me know if the music is too loud or too quiet or too distracting. Trying out a new service, Pretzel Rocks. Trying to figure out some good background music. So today, what we're going to be working on is continuing what we streamed about Saturday. So Saturday, Daniel and I hopped on the stream for I think it was almost 4 hours. Um, Not going to be that long today. It's going to be I think we're going to try and cap it at about 2 hours. So we'll see how productive we can be in the next 2 hours. This music is too loud for me to even think over, so I'm going to try and turn it down a little bit more. Well, that's not working. Okay, so on Saturday, Daniel and I jumped on a stream. We went through some deep linking with Prism. So using Xamarin Forms and Prism, we were looking through how the deep linking worked. I had used Prism and deep linking on a project just recently. It turned out really, really well, except for one thing. So as soon as you had a tab view and you were navigating to a tab and then to a page within that tab, so within each tab, actually it's easier to show you. So let's bring up the solution that we stood up on Saturday, we being Daniel and I. Okay, so Prism. Launching Visual Studio. I'll make the fonts bigger in a second here because I know it tends to be a little hard to read. Okay, so let's gonna enlarge this a bunch. Cool, that should help with things. All right, so what we were doing here is we were coming in via a deep link. So essentially, if we're just talking from a forms perspective, our entry point was this built-in method that's available in Xamarin Forms. So in your app XAML or your class that inherits from application, in this case Prism application because we're using Prism, there is a method in here that we can override called on app link request received. So this brings in the URI that comes in via the deep link, so from the operating system. Essentially, it's what comes in on the intent that opens up the activity. So that comes in, and what we can do in here, we're doing some Prism specific things. So we built this resolve deep link little parser essentially, and it's a little bit hacky, but it gets the job done. So basically, what it does is it allows you to use specific Prism URLs. So let's kind of show what that looks like. I have a page here, right somewhere here. So this page here, we have 3 app links on here, 3 deep links. So if you can see down below in the status bar, we were just linking to tomobiledevs.com/main page. This one is main page, selected tab, items page. You know what, let me pull these out. Copy link address. I'm gonna just bring these up in VS Code so we can take a look at them. Zoom in a whole bunch. Okay, so that's our first link. Our second link is, so this one is one step deeper into the nav. So this one is selecting a tab from our main page, and I'll show you that main page in a second. And whoops. Our third is actually navigating to another detail page within the selected tab and passing in an item ID so we can select an item. So let's quickly I'll just launch the app so we can see what that looks like. I'm going to launch this in Android. So we haven't wired this up for iOS. We're only working with Android. It doesn't really matter which platform you work with when we're in the Forms realm of it. We'll wire this up for iOS later, but really this is a POC to show to demonstrate where Prism, how far Prism will get you out of the box, and then where you need to kind of extend it to do the rest of the navigation. So let's launch this really quick. Start up my sim. Oh, important business. I have a nice beer here from a local brewery. Local brewery in Toronto called Godspeed, which is really nice. So if you are in Toronto, you can go godspeedbrewery.com and order directly from them. I know it's a little crazy with the COVID crisis. And they'll deliver to your door like hands touchless, I guess. I don't know, whatever you want to call that. Low contact, no contact delivery. They have really good beer. They make some of the best lagers in the city and some nice ales too. Very good. This one is their Japanese theme for the most part, and this one is a nice German Dortmunder, so like kind of a Pilsner, hoppy, nice golden lager. It's really good. Okay, still installing. We're doing something, taking its sweet time. I know working with the emulators is a little bit slow when I'm trying to stream, so bear with me. I should be launching in a second. Okay, here it goes. Cool. Okay, so it's launching. It's launching. It's launching. We're waiting. So when I'm streaming and using the emulator, because it's using like the streaming, Streamlabs uses quite a bit of my CPU, along with some of the other stuff I have going on. So yeah, it's just not going to be super snappy. But now that it's up and running, it should be pretty easy to reload it. Okay, so we have two tabs. We have Browse, we have About. Cool. Within Browse, we can navigate into these items. This is all Prism driven, so it's all MVVM using Prism, which is cool. And then I should hopefully have this up. Yeah, okay, so that same page we were just looking at in the desktop browser with the deep links, I have up here in a tab. So I can click into that and it brings me to the main page. The main page is just my page with two tabs on it. It's actually the tabbed page. So if we just quickly take a look at that. So the main page is just my tabbed page. So tab page is two tabs. So the Browse tab and the About tab. Cool. Good stuff. And when we tap into one of the items, it takes us to the item detail page, which is item detail page here, which shows us the detail of an item. Very generic. It doesn't do anything back end, doesn't do anything fancy. It's just got some mock data service. The whole intent of this is that deep linking. So really getting to, so say you've got an app that has a whole product catalog, or maybe it's something like a music player and you want to link to a specific song. You can actually pass that data through your stack of pages. So we can do this with Prism, but it only gets you so far. So what I want to show now is the handoff. So what we do in AppXAML CS, it's a two-stage navigation process. So the first part of the URL, so if we look at the URL, what we do, if we just pass this in and say, hey, Prism, process this whole part of the URL, process the main page, selected tab, items page, item detail page, item ID 2, it doesn't really work the way we want. It gets us up to this point. So 1 and 2 work perfectly fine. 1 and 2 work great. And in fact, we could do the same thing and put in, let's just quickly put in another link. No, I'm not going to put in another link, but we could do the same thing with the About page. But as you saw, the link that we clicked on, the third link there that has the link to item 2, that actually brought up item 2, like it took us right into that. So how are we doing that? If Prism doesn't do it, how are we doing it? Well, we do two-stage navigation, like I said. So the first part of the URL, we break this all up. So we break it up into two parts. The first part is the tabbed page and the selected tab, and then the second part is everything after that. So we break it up, and because we've got that URL formatted in the, it's actually built in the format that Prism expects, it works pretty well to get us pretty far. So we take that first part of the URL up to, so we split the URL by parts. This could probably be a lot more efficient. Daniel pointed out with regex. I am not a huge regex fan. It's not super readable if you don't, if it's if you're new to it. I'm not very comfortable with myself, so writing it and reading it is a struggle for me. I have to look up the syntax, experiment with it. It's a whole other language I'm not fluent in, so I prefer to just do it the long way and have it super verbose like we have here. So I break it into its parts. I take the first part. This is our tab page URL. So this is basically like our tab page and selected tab. So then I split it. So you can see here I've got a little note. It's coming in main page, selected tab, items page. So we've got our tab page and our selected tab. Cool. So we replace our selected tab with nothing. We replace the equal sign with nothing. So we get down to that part. So then we have our selected tab. This is basically used for subtraction. So down here, what we're doing is we're saying, we're building the second part. And we're saying, this is the second part of the URL that we want to, or this is the first part of the URL that we want to navigate to. So our selected tab. And I don't know why we rebuilt that. I must have been, that's interesting. We rebuilt that from scratch because that's the same. This is the same as what's up here. In fact, I'm going to change that right now. I'm so disturbed by the fact that we went and redid that. This tab page URL, if I take this, and let's just go, since we're already using page name, tab page URL, but I think I need to trim that trailing slash. Trim end, single character, slash. Okay, anyways, so that gets us that passes this into the navigation service down here. So the page name you can see gets passed into this navigation details, which is what we return from the resolve deep link. The second part is a parameter. So the parameter is the second piece of that URL. So we essentially split it up and pass in the parameters here. We pass in our subpage path, which is our custom navigation parameter. So it's basically a named parameter that we can take out of the navigation parameters that will contain the deep link page path, which is going to be tab page URL, our deep link URL, so what comes in, minus our tab page URL. It's crazy how much of this stuff I've reinvented the wheel in. This is interesting. I'm going to try commenting all of this out just to see. Let's make sure this works. Okay, so, and don't need this either. Cool. Let's see if this, I can't believe how much unnecessary code I wrote last time. It's because we went 4 hours with like no break. That's what you get when you stare at a screen for that long. Everything starts looking like nonsense and you write bad code. All right. Let's see if those links still work. Item 2. Oh, okay. Right. I remember why I put it in there. Right. So it's saying push async is not supported globally on Android. Please use navigation page. One tip, if you're new to Xamarin and working with it and get a crash like this, some people will always want to hit the stop button on their IDE, whether using VS for Mac or Visual Studio for Windows. Don't hit stop. Let this play. Let it run. Just keep going. Hit run again. And what you get if you let it keep running is it dumps all this useful information to your application output, which is going to be your friend in fixing the problem. So here's the full stack trace. Cool. Now we can go and fix it. I already know where the issue is. I remember why I wrote that code now, as I berated myself for writing it. Okay, let's see. So where's my navigation page that I added in there? Just gonna undo a bunch of stuff. Select the tab. Select the tab last. Interesting, interesting. I am gonna look at this stack trace. Thrown from not my code. So there's actually not much I can use. Okay, that's fine. Oh, here it is on create. Yeah, that doesn't help us. Okay. Here, somewhere in here, we are using a navigation page. Where? I don't know. Okay, let's see if I'm actually just going to put this back in place. And I'm going to see if we're actually, I see. So it's actually making it through this piece fine, because if it crashed after we got the resolved deep link, so the first navigation step is done here. So we call this navigate async, and all this navigate async does is it uses the Prism navigation service, calls navigate async, we check the result to see if it's success, and then we throw the exception. Otherwise, if we don't do this, Prism swallows that exception. So it's not throwing it here, which means it's throwing it on the second step. So let's see. I'm going to put a breakpoint here so we can watch this return successfully. And then we'll go look at that second step. Once we hit that breakpoint, I'll walk through the second step. Okay. So success, true. Cool, that's what we expected. So I'm not going to let this play now, otherwise it'll break. I'm going to jump into, I'm just going to close a bunch of stuff here. So we just have the AppXAML open. And I'm going to go to the items view model. Yes. So our items view model page is what handles the second stage of the navigation. So what we do is we override the Prism onNavigated_to method, bring in the parameters. So those parameters that we built up as part of the resolve deep link. So these page navigation details, this first parameter, this the constructor parameter, or the constructor takes a set of navigation parameters, Prism navigation parameters, which hold the next set of navigation instructions. So what we do is we pull those out here using try get value. So we get our subpage path, cool, and we navigate to it. Easy peasy, right? So subpage path, get the subpage path out here as a string, and then we navigate to it. So it looks like this is the problem. Let's see what's going on. Or not. Right, it's not going to hit that. It just launched. I need to go to a deep link. Okay, let's watch this again. We have breakpoints in the right spots. Okay, so result true. So this is the first set of navigation. So if you look at the navigation page, this is navigating to main page. Wasn't selecting a tab, which is kind of odd. What's our call stack look like? Is this the call stack I expect? So what called this? App navigate async. This is uninitialized. Okay. So that's not quite what I would have expected there, but interesting. I think this needs some unit testing. All right, what do we got here? Subpage path. Item detail page, and then ID 2. So it's navigating to our item detail page with ID 2. But this is going to crash because we don't have a navigation page in there. So where was I adding the navigation page to make this work before? That's where I'm kind of confused at this point. Let's put a breakpoint here and inspect everything in this. Success, navigating. No, this throws from too low level. Okay, so even catching that, checking the exception from navigation isn't really going to work. All right. Let's try this again. Just gonna check out how this sounds from. All right. First step of that navigation. Where are we going? So this hasn't even gone through our deep link, because this is not a deep link. This is just, we don't even want that breakpoint. This is just launching the app. So let's see what happens when we go through the deep link. Okay, so here we are. Page name, main page, select the tab, items page. Cool, that's exactly what we want. Subpage, item ID, subpage path, item details page. Cool. So this is really what I would have expected in there. So I don't think this is going to change much. I feel like maybe I should just stand up a unit test. Let's see. Let's give this one more run. Cool, so this is just going to crash. We already know that. All right, let's try, don't need that. I'm going to uncomment this code again. Revert it back to the way I had it when it was actually working. I think I know what it is. I think I know exactly what it is. So really, we haven't changed any of the logic here for the deep link page path. This stays the same. We didn't touch that. The challenge was with the page name, so I'm just going to check it at both stages. Like, I don't know, this is hacky, but it's fine. Just going to call that one page name 1. This is such a hack. It's fine. Testing, and I'm too lazy currently to stand up a unit test project. I just don't want to. It's a task for another day, if necessary. Okay, let's go through a deep link. Cool. So page name 1. Let's bring up the locals window here. So what's the difference between page name and page name 1? It's that leading slash. So page name 1 doesn't have the leading slash. So basically all I'd have to do, okay. All right, isn't this fun? Isn't that fantastic? Okay. So all I'm going to do is I'm just going to do a straight concatenation here. Everybody thinks this is a no-no, that like concatenating like this. They're like, oh, this is a performance hit. Like, sure it is if you're iterating it over it more than one time. This is not a performance hit. This does not matter. Okay, so I'm going to comment all this weird stuff that I wrote out. Just get rid of that. Simplifies it substantially. And okay, so that second part here is processing the second navigation hop. So let's just watch this again. All right. Whoops, I don't actually want to navigate. Let's just leave it on the about screen. And you can see it navigate. Page name is going to be proper because it's doing, so this leading slash gives us absolute navigation. So that means it's going to reset the page navigation stack and bring us in from the start. So we're going to the tab page URL that comes in. Okay. And then the tab page handles the second page. So our subpage path, which is item detail page ID 2. And away we go. So Prism can't handle that in one step. We have to do it in 2. And it works. It's great. But not my favorite thing in the world. So what my intent was, the intent is to actually get Prism to handle this out of the box. So that's the next step. I talked to some people online, some online friends. If you want to see any of that, by the way, it's here. It's in github.com, Toronto Mobile Developer / Prism tab nav. So that fully working sample is here. I'll put a README in there in a little bit. So that was the exercise Daniel and I went through on Saturday, was wiring that up so you could see the two-stage navigation. So now what we want to do is look at deep links. So connecting with a few people on this, I connected with Almir, I believe his name was. So I had a conversation with another community member, Almir Vuk. He had been working on the same issue, and we had some back and forth on, okay, how are you handling this? And we kind of went through it. And he said, he shot me over this GitHub issue that Brian Lagunas, one of the maintainers of Prism, opened a couple years ago, almost 2 years to the day, that basically showed why this wasn't implemented. There's a weird issue in Xamarin Forms where there's a scenario in which it'll show just a blank screen with tab navigation. And apparently it's still out there. I think yeah, Almir commented on it just in February. That's, I think, when we were having a discussion about it. No, we've been talking about it forever. So this has been going on for a while. So Dan's the other maintainer of Prism. To do in Sprint 1.868. So this has recent action on it. Interesting. So this might even be dealt with. Let's see what's in the Prism repo. See what we can find. Deep link. Ah, look at this. This is exactly what we were looking at. Enhancement, deep link navigation into subpages of tab bar item. I don't know why it didn't maintain my zoom when I opened up a separate tab. 130%. Anyways, let's do this. One more. Cool. Deep link into a subpage of tab bar item, navigate by absolute path. Doesn't this look familiar? This is exactly what we did. Ha. So Dan tagged this as Xamarin Forms. There's a related issue. Deep link navigation to subpages. This is the same. So it was raised as an issue. Not a bug, not supported. Need to handle nesting yourself. So what I'm wondering is if I can take what I built there, that just really simple parser, and at least post it up as a POC and get some feedback from Dan. I lost my Zoom again. Okay. So this enhancement. I'm just going to pull this over into my personal browser session. Short and sweet. Flagged in that. Okay, so let's do this first. I'm going to fork this to okay, and then I'm going to clone it. Cool. So let's take a look. I've got quite a bit of experience playing with the Prism navigation service. I was on a project a while back, and that project, some of the stakeholders were very resistant to change. So when I proposed bringing Prism in, it was met with heavy scrutiny. So instead, we rolled our own, which was not ideal. So I'm going to bring this up in Rider just because when I'm exploring a code base, Visual Studio doesn't really have the tools, in my opinion, and the speed to navigate through a new code base. And I much prefer Rider. If you haven't used Rider, it's a cross-platform IDE for .NET made by JetBrains. JetBrains is a extremely widely known company. They do Kotlin, which is the primary language for Android development. They do a suite of IDEs based on IntelliJ IDEA, which was their original Java IDE. They basically took that shell of an IDE and put a whole bunch of different language engines into it or behind it. So they've got PyCharm to do Python development. They've got AppCode to do Swift development. They've got Rider. They've got WebStorm. There's a whole bunch. Really, really strong IDEs. This is actually what they did with this is they took the ReSharper engine. Lots of .NET developers have heard of ReSharper before. I just am trying to get my... I can never remember the zoom controls on these various... That's the one thing that it has going against it, the consistency of controls. I'm hitting my Command plus. It is not zooming. There we go. Use the scroll, Command scroll. Okay, so this is just the README. So let's navigate to page navigation service. There it is in all its glory. This is a bit of a beast, the page navigation service. If you're aware of Prism, this is like this is it to me. This is the heart and soul of Prism. You need a solid navigation service for MVVM, and boy, does this do a good job. Just does a fantastic job. Okay, so let's go look at, let's bring up our Explorer. Sorry, structure window. This is what I wanted. Okay, so I want to look at the structure of our class. So at its most basic level, this is what it presents. And there's all the internal, which are really, this is the key. Navigate internal. This is the workhorse of Prism and Prism's navigation service. So it parses URL. This is the big piece right here. So you know what I like to do when I'm testing this kind of thing? What do they have for tests out of the box? Tests are these XUnit tests. So I'm actually workbenching something like this. I generally will just add my solutions in. So let's add, I'm going to add the Android head from that test project. Which way should I do this? Just debating. Yeah, I'm just going to bring in what's there. I can sort this out later. Like, I'm really making a bit of a mess right now, but it's fine. I want to get to I'm not worried about, I can organize things later as far as project structure and bringing in test projects. Right now, I want to get at the heart of it. I really want to test out and debug why it's not actually doing the navigation all at once. Okay, I'm back up to I'm gonna add my common project. Of course, I changed my sorting. Cool. So, we've got some people on YouTube. Hi, YouTube. It's hard to keep track of where I'm now streaming to YouTube and Twitch at the same time, which is new as of today. So it's kind of interesting keeping track of this because I honestly have no optics into chat or anything. I guess like I've got stream chat up from Twitch, but I don't think I can put in YouTube chat at the same time. Anyways, I'm trying to watch YouTube chat here on my phone. So if you've got questions or anything, feel free to hit me up. Hi, Jose. It's a little better. Probably should have had that up from the beginning. Okay, so what we want to do now, so the next thing here is instead of referencing the NuGet packages, I'm actually going to tear those out. This is one of the things that's really nice about Rider, particularly if you're using Mac. So it's a little bit of, I used to use Visual Studio with ReSharper, and I really, really missed ReSharper with Visual Studio for Mac, particularly when I first switched over, when it was Xamarin Studio, to start working on Xamarin apps. It didn't have any refactoring, well, had very little refactoring capability built in. And Rider offered, when Rider was released, it offered the same power as ReSharper on a cross-platform IDE. So that was super appealing to me. Okay, so I'm going to remove the Prism Dry IOC forms. NuGet package, and then we're just going to reference the project directly from here. You know, sometimes you just make a mistake by trying to shortcut something, and it hurts. So I can't actually reference, it's not letting me reference, it's not letting me reference the Dry IOC actual project from here. Oh no, never mind, it was just being stupid. Okay, cool. Dry IOC project, let's bring it in. Good stuff. Okay, so now we have our dependencies back in place. Thanks, Raj. It's good, but I'm out. I should probably go get some now. Got to get to that Balmer Peak. If you've never seen the Balmer Peak, I'll bring that up. Let's just look here. Balmer Peak. There you go. The Balmer Peak. All right, enough messing around. Let's get some work done. Okay, so I've got my reference in place. We should be able to build this now. Let's see. Just building my whole dependencies. It's building all of Prism, so it might take a minute. You know what? That's a really good time to take a break. I will be back in a second. Well, first of all, having a beer because, Balmer Peak, right? Um, just gonna pour this. Yeah. It's funny, it looks way more like orange on the stream. Anyways, Daniel couldn't make it. Yeah, you'd like this one. It's good. Okay, I want to show you the issue that I'm going to try and deal with here. Oh, right here. So basically, Prism doesn't handle deep links into subpages of a tab item. Good question, Alan. Harass him, please. I know he's helping out a lot with people in his building. Daniel is. He's in a building with, I don't know, a fair amount of old people. So he's helping them get groceries and things like that. I know he's doing a lot of that to kind of help them get through it. Oh, make fun of him on Twitter. Either way. Either way, he's not here, and he told me he was going to be here. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to handle. So I've already handled it, just to get you acquainted with what I'm doing. I'm doing Rider. So it's basically a two-stage navigation flow. So in AppXAML, shut up. In AppXAML, I parse out the link. I can get rid of a lot of this garbage. I break the link into the incoming deep link into two parts. The first part, which is gets you into the selected tab, and then the second part, which is any of the page stack after that. And then within the view model for the selected tab page, we take care of the second stage of navigation here. But really, it'd be extremely nice if Prism could do the whole thing, which is what this enhancement's all about. So that's what we're working on. So I brought in Prism. Something doesn't like. Parameter is not supported by XAML CTask. What parameter? I don't want that. That's garbage. Turn off XAML C. Okay, let's see if this builds now. Oh, it's complaining about the relative source. It's funny. Maybe it's complaining about it. Maybe, actually, I don't know what's going on. So that's not supported in Rider, relative source ancestor type, yet. So that's the ability to bind to the parent view. Switch it back to my usual hack of using this. All right. So it builds. Cool. And I assume this will build as well. I'm gonna edit this to launch the cool selected deployment. Sure, good. No Android manifest. What are you talking about? Yeah. Yeah. This is probably should, although that doesn't really matter. Ends up being inconsequential. Putting the command on the child view model because it builds. Just gives me a weird warning. But it's really complaining about the Android project, so I might switch back to VS for Mac. Okay, cool. Okay, so I just need an explicit reference here. Good. Build this one. Oh, we're playing that game. Prism forms. And hell, let's add Cora while we're here. Okay. Building our project. So what I want to do is I want to have a way to easily toggle this off and on. So this, the entry point for this when it comes in. Yeah, I'm just going to comment this out. So it just calls navigate async with the URL that's coming in from the deep link. And then we can actually step through the navigation service, see what's going on here. Cool. Okay, I've had enough of you, Ryder. Stop Visual Studio. My machine does not have a great time handling. Which solution did I have open? Must have been Prism Library. I don't know. Nope. Wrong. Oh, don't open EAP. Okay, good. So the early access preview Ryder has hot reload built in, but kind of doesn't at the same time. It's not very stable yet. I'm just going to keep Ryder open. I might end up switching back and forth between the two. I just opened Prism Library before. Okay. Close. Okay, time to close some browser windows. How about now, Alan? Turned it way up. I had it quiet on purpose, but probably too quiet. The machine is suffering a little bit right now. So I'm closing a bunch of things. Close all the things. It's already improving. What else do we got here? Kill GitHub Desktop. And probably VS Code as well. All right, seems to be working better already. Okay, let's run our tab nav project again. Yeah, Alan, I've been toying with the idea of getting another machine. Haven't gotten there yet. Still waiting to see if I have a job as COVID continues to rage. Okay, so TabNav Android, let's launch this. While that's launching, I'm going to bring back up our navigation. Page navigation. Page navigation service. That is the one. And within here, I want our navigate internal. Yeah, it is, but it's shifting too, right? I just don't want to drop a bunch of cash on a machine and then be in a spot where I'm looking temporarily. Make do. All right, so here we go. So I'm gonna walk through this. Why am I getting errors here? This project was working fine. Turn off warnings. XAML C. You know, I turned off XAML C. Search in VS for Mac is nice and slow. Oh, is it trying to build all those projects? Oh, well, that's fun, isn't it? So debug all these tests. WPF. Yeah. That is true. Every time I join your stream, Alan, nothing works. Oh, solution files. Anytime you update a solution file, it's like roll the dice on how long it's going to take and whether or not it's going to crash your IDE. It's almost as if the format they use for solution files is not good. Almost as if. Michael, we are working on Prism navigation with deep links. If I can get my IDE to respond. But Alan has a curse on me, so might not work. And there goes my music because I closed the browser. Well, let's open that back up. Fun times. All right. Some music back. if I'm into this song. I feel like the way I'm going to get through this is actually quitting the Android emulator and instead using my physical device. We'll see. Looks like it's actually going to succeed this time. Cool. So Alan, your curse was very short-lived. As soon as I figured out what was going on, I was able to get around it. What do you got next? Not true. It wasn't the IDE. It was something to do with XAML-C on XAML-C on the Prism projects, the Prism test projects. Cool, so it's now navigating to the main page and we're debugging, stepping through Prism. So I don't really care about this first move. Maybe we can see what it comes back with. Let's look at the URI. URI is nothing special, so none of this is really going to do anything particularly special. So I'm just going to let this play out. And then what I'm going to do, since we commented out our, just go back to the app XAML. So in pure hackiness style, when we receive that deep link here, we're just going to straight up try and navigate to it and see what happens. So this is what I want to do. I'm going to have this fire. So let's put a breakpoint here. So I'm going to deep link in. And watch what happens. Cool. That's not it yet. Okay, there we go. So our URL that we receive. So this is our main page, selected tab, items page, item detail, page ID 2. So if we let this go, so that's our URI, same thing. Okay, so first thing that this does is it goes out and gets the URL segments. So I don't want to step into that. I mostly just care about the results for now. So let's see what that looks like. So navigation segments. Let's look in our locals. This is really small and probably impossible for anybody to see, including myself. Okay, so this is pretty much what I'd expect it to be. So it's the first piece, which is main page, select the tab, items page in the first segment. And the second segment is item detail page ID 2. So this is basically the same thing I'm doing in the in my app XAML when I resolve the deep link. It essentially does the same thing. Breaks it into two parts and cleans it up. So it is an absolute URI. So really now it's processing So we got to step into this next one. And actually, what I'm going to do is instead of stepping into it, I'm going to, going through that pane, I'm going to go ahead. Let's get to there. So play to that. Okay, so segments. So it's passed in a queue of 2 segments, which are our URL segments. Cool. So it's using a queue. So first it's processing the first piece, which is the main page. So it's taking the segment, getting parameters from it. Here we go. So it's looking for seeing if it's a modal navigation command or not. Of course it's not in this case. Move page segment. Nope. Current page. Current page is null. Okay, so process navigation for root page. Whoops. Good times. I love Mac. I have function lock on too. All right, well, let's step in. So, process navigation for root. Oh, so first it's calling call page from segment. I'm just going to back up one step. Create page from segment. Pin this. Unpin our application output. So we can kind of go back and forth here. So create page from segment. So this is, let's see. So first segment name is main page. Hi, Denny. I know that was 5 minutes ago, but better late than never. I'm having to monitor YouTube chat on my phone. Okay, so our segment name is just our main page. So it's going to go out. Create page should probably just be using reflection and creating an instance. Let's see what that's actually doing. Oh, it's grabbing it from Dry IOC. Cool. So Dry IOC is taking care of it. That makes sense. Just going to return that main page. Cool. So now we've got main page, instance of main page. We don't really care about that. We don't really care about the behaviors. Curious to what configure pages it does. Let's take a look at that. Configure pages. So if it's a tab page, oh, curious. I'm glad we went and took a look at this. If it's a tab page, it's calling into configure tab page. So we have 2 children here. Two children, 2 navigation pages. Cool, so it's going to iterate through those. What is it doing? So it's basically setting up all the Prism, wiring up all the Prism stuff. It's a navigation page, it's going another level deeper. So it's almost recursively going through all the pages that it needs to create on this call and hooking up all the Prism behaviors and setting up the view models. Cool. So I don't really want to walk through any of this. I kind of know what this is doing. Or I assume I know what it's doing. I don't know how safe that is. Harrison, yeah. This isn't so much about... So Harrison464 asked a question in the Twitch chat, said, if I remember correctly, to do deep links with Apple, don't you have to set up the provisioning profile for that? Yes, you do. You have to set up things through the Apple Developer Portal. We're not really focused on that. We're more focused on... So deep links are really 2 pieces. There's the native piece on how do you actually register the app with the operating system to receive the URL. That's the first piece. And the second piece is once you get that URL in your app, what are you doing with it? So we're just doing it with Android for now because it's just a little simpler to set up. And with the Android apps, we've handled the part where the operating system has it registered. It's pretty simple using an intent. And then what we're dealing with is using Xamarin Forms and using Prism within Xamarin Forms, how to process that URL and actually get it to where you need it to go. So actually bringing up a page for a specific item in this case. We're just using very generic boilerplate kind of code that comes with the Xamarin Forms templates. We've adapted them to Prism and brought Prism in. Prism uses URL-based navigation, and we're trying to make sure that we can navigate to a tab, and then within that tab, create another navigation stack into the page we want. So that's the kind of key. And the way we've done it is we've implemented it with 2 stages. So we get the first stage, sets it up, gets us to the selected tab we want, and then within that tab, we handle the second piece of navigation, which is building out that stack. But we'd like to do it all in one shot with Prism. So we're going to try and understand how Prism is working so we can modify the navigation service and submit a PR to satisfy this open feature request, if I can find the window. There's an enhancement request here. Deep link navigation into subpages of tab bar item. And this is what we're going to try and implement. So we're going through the navigation service to get a good understanding of how it works, and we're going to see what we can do about actually handling that all in one shot rather than breaking it into 2 stages within the app. Kind of made that a little more confusing than I needed to, because there's the 2 pieces. There's the operating system and then within your app, but then within our app, because Prism doesn't handle it all in one shot, we're breaking it into 2 pieces within our app. It's kind of interesting. All right, so where are we now? I want to move to that next piece. Okay. Just monitoring chat here a little bit. Okay, so get segment parameters again. So another call into here. So we've got our segment. So that's the that larger segment, which actually calls with the selected tab. So this is going to get us that same set of parameters. Interesting. Let's see. So parameters. Oh, I see. So it's looking for the create tab parameter. So I would assume that down here it's looking for the selected tab parameter. Yeah, tab page selected tab. So it's going to skip over this because we're not creating any tabs. So just like we can select a tab using a like a query string parameter, let's actually just bring that up. So here we're using the Xamarin, or sorry, the Prism's URL formatting to select a tab. So we're going to main page, that's our tab page that contains 2 tabs. We're selecting the items page tab. The same way you do that, if you wanted to dynamically create those tabs on the fly, you can do that by using a create tab parameter. So this is just a string called create tab. So you could create a tab as well, which would be a cool thing to do as well. Okay, so we're not going to create a tab. So now we know we're going to hit down here next. So let's get there. Cool. So tab page, select tab. See what this looks like. Oh yeah, that's what I want to step into for sure. Okay, tab page, select tab. So cool. So we have a selected tab, items page. So selected tab type. Interesting. Get segment name. So it's actually going to go figure out, it's going to grab the selected tab name. Segment name? I wonder what this actually does. Let's just take a quick look at this. Oh, it's just seeing if it has a query parameter, which it doesn't, so we don't care about that. Get page type though. Select the tab type. Let's see what this comes back with. So I'm going to just skip ahead again. Okay, so selected tab type, items page. Okay, so it's actually just type. All right. So tabbed page. Our tabbed page. So it's iterating through. Looking to see if it's trying to find the tab that we've selected, basically, that we've indicated as a selected tab. Once it identifies that, sets the current page to the child, and then checks to see if child is a navigation page. I see. So if it's a navigation page, so really, this method here is where our magic happens. This is essentially what we're going to end up building onto. This is our entry point as far as handling that second stage of navigation. So in tab page, select tab. There's no conditions when entering this. within here, it checks to see if there's a selected tab specified, and then it executes everything if there is. And what this essentially does is searches through the children, matches to the selected tab type, matches the children's type to the selected tab type. If there's a navigation page, if there is a navigation page, what is it doing differently? Child found. Oh, if there's not a child found, and there's a navigation page. Oh, so it's actually looking. Oh, I see. So ours won't get hit here. It'll hit here because our pages are wrapped in a navigation page. So it'll actually hit here and set the selected page here. So it's really one of these two. So if you're using a navigation page, you're here. If you're not, you're here. Cool. Okay, so now we know where to add some stuff in. Perfect. And I'm sure it's going to be super easy. I have to think about how I'm even going to approach this. Okay, so the first thing we want to do, we've got that second part. So let's just validate our assumption here. I'm just going to let this keep going. Yeah. Tab page. So our child is our navigation page, and this navigation page, the current page, is the items page. Cool. Now really, I'm going to add some to-dos in here just to kind of bookmark this. Enhancement number 2038. All right. So now let's just kind of walk our way out of this. I want to see. Oh God, don't want that. So this is the last thing it does in configure tab page method. Now what's going on? So it's finished here. Create page from segment is done. So this is our main page with the selected tabs, or the selected tab. I'm not going to dig into this. Get the idea. So we've processed navigation, essentially. This is done. So let's take a look at this next section here. So I'm not sure what this is really doing. So application provider, main page. It's our current current page, our modal stack. Let's get down here and see where we're at. Oh, this is just a breakpoint I already had. Current page, modal stack, it's not a stack. Well, it's a stack, it's an empty stack. Get current page, let's see what this does. Huh. Okay. So next segment. Interesting. I want to see what do navigate action is doing now. I feel like this is kind of the same flow. So parses the segment parameters. Just kind of confused at this point. Calls our navigated events. Make sure we can navigate. So this is executing it. So it constructs everything. And then this is it taking the page. Let's actually see what this looks like. So our two page, I see. So our from page is kind of confusing because it's both. Our from page is navigation, or our main page with nothing selected. We don't just default, right? Because we just launch the app. And then our two is our deep link. So it's interesting because it's then taking that two page, and what is it doing? No, it's just calling methods on it. So all this is going to do is look for the binding context to see if the binding context implements iNavigation aware. Call the methods on it. Interesting. So nothing fancy going on here, really. This is pretty straightforward. So all the work was actually done in that other method where I made that comment. Here. So it's here where we basically have to recursively process the rest of that page to get it to the point where it's building out the rest of that stack. So I'm going to see what we come into this with again. Okay, so I'm just going to let this play. Yeah, I don't care. Yeah, yeah. This is because we tried to let Prism handle it. No likey. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to. I'm just gonna start this again. I want to walk through that again. I want to see what we have access to in tab page select tab. I think I need to break the URL up again, and then I need to process the second half of the URL. Okay, so navigate internal. So I'm just going to copy this because I think we're going to need this again. I'll let this go because we don't need to stop it here. Get segment parameters. Nope. Don't need that anymore. Tab page select tab, that's the one. Let's get in there. Okay. Oh, did I not have a breakpoint in there? Oh, you know, I know why. Because I'm not in a deep link right now. Okay, well. And there we go. So processing the deep link, child found, cool. Okay, so at this point, we're at selected tab. Selected tab type, child found. So really, we can check child found. It's conveniently declared in the outer scope there. If child found. So let's start just experimenting with this a little bit. So we're going to get the navigation segments. We don't have the URI here. Shit. Okay. What do I have in this scope? I have nothing useful to get that second half of the URL. Shit. So I'm almost thinking okay, I'm almost thinking to go up the stack to our navigate internal. And take that URI and make it a member. got in here from members? Page. Huh. Because we need that URL like way down the stack. And I don't want to have to modify the whole method call chain all the way down in order to get it. That to me seems like a lot of useless boilerplate to write and really kind of mess to make. Really, so page. How is this used? Let's see. I want to try and be consistent. So let's see. Page is being used. What about the property? Yeah, this is definitely being used too. So I'm trying to figure out how to get that URI lower down in the stack without having to pass it in. I think it's what it is. I think it's, I think this is what we're dealing with here. We'll see. The thing is, all of this is going to be met with high level of scrutiny anyways, so I figure let's get something working and then we can talk about how to clean things up. Probably be a lot of back and forth, me and the Prism team, to make sure I have this clean enough to be accepted in a PR. Okay, so I was looking at navigate internal. Yes, yes, this is the one. So here. So I don't love that, but like it's gonna help us get what we're here to accomplish accomplished. I'm lost again. This song is a hard no. All right. So now down here, I now have a URI. Now the challenge here, oh, what do we got here? This is static. Oh, of course it's static. Okay. Whew. Excuse me. I got 10 minutes left. Let's see if we can make any progress in 10 minutes. Someone has messaged me in Arabic. I cannot read that. Samra here. Be my translator. Okay. So there's two usages to this that I found. So one, select page tab. How do we enter this? Where are we right now? Oh, this is master detail. Oh, okay. Okay. Which is a different thing altogether. Thanks. We only have one piece of red. We don't have any working code yet. Well, we do. Just not in here. So the problem is, right now, within our tab page select tab, I made the assumption that I was going to be able to use a member. I didn't realize everything's static through the whole call stack. I don't want to modify every single method, but it looks like that's what I'm going to have to do. But I don't really care to do that right now. What I'm going to do instead is I'm going to go to my URI here, make this static. So we can just use it. Oops. So, dirty hack. I will never PR this as is, but I want to get that navigation segment so I can continue to build onto this tab page, essentially. So this will build and run. This will get us some nice navigation segments. So let's actually see what that looks like. Then let's figure out the next bit. So the next bit I want to do, I'm just going to stub that in. Next song. So I want to see the navigation segments populated here. It's not going to hit on our first run because we're not processing a deep link. I think when you're working on Xamarin, yes, Visual Studio for Mac. So normally when I'm developing with Xamarin, I tend to use the iOS simulator because it's super fast and I can iterate quicker and it's more stable, it's less resource intensive, all that stuff. So I tend to use a combination of Visual Studio for Mac and JetBrains Rider. Rider is really my big workhorse. I'm not using it right now because I just was annoyed with it earlier and switched back. But I do like developing on the Mac. I was not a Mac user up until, say, about 3.5 years ago. I switched because you basically, if you're building Xamarin or building anything mobile, you need a Mac OS machine to build iOS projects. So Apple kind of forced me into their box, which is their whole game, right? I don't necessarily prefer Mac OS over Windows. I don't prefer one set of tools over the other. Both have there's trade-offs everywhere. So it's just a question of what I'm working on. I still, particularly in my day-to-day work, that I'm currently working on some interesting pieces of infrastructure as code and some interesting things with Dynamics 365, believe it or not. And I use my PC a lot for that. So I actually, not a PC, I use Parallels. So that's the other thing about Mac is you can boot Windows, which is nice. Okay, so I've got my second piece here. So okay, we got 3 minutes left. So let's do this. Navigation segments, dirty hack. So we'll say, what did I call it previously? Subpage path. Actually, better thing to do would be to use a terminology from the ticket. Yeah, subpage path. Okay, same terminology. So we're going to call this subpage path. Cool. Oh, it's a queue. Oh, okay. Can't remember the last time I had to use a queue. So basically I want to dequeue and ignore the first part. Xamarin and React Native are super... React Native follows the same model as Xamarin. Xamarin's been around for longer. I'm not as experienced with React Native, so... And by not as experienced, I mean I have far less experience, far less. It's just a matter of preference, I think. I've been told by people who have used both tools heavily that React Native, you can iterate faster because the inner dev loop is faster. Now, I think that's kind of an old way of looking at it because Xamarin has done a lot to iterate faster on code. Like we've got hot reload and things like that. So I think it comes down to a matter of preference because I really like C#. I like strongly typed language. I like .NET. So like the whole .NET framework, there's so much that it does for you right out of the box. You don't have to go searching for a lot of components. There's a good ecosystem. Xamarin's mature. So I think it's a lot of just preference. So my preference is Xamarin because that's what I know best. But I think really it's whatever tool fits you, right? So if you're a JavaScript developer, and I know there's a ton of JavaScript developers out there, and you already know React, then React Native is probably your better bet. Okay, so now we have our subpage path. I want to make sure that that works, and that's pretty much all I'm going to do for tonight. So decent progress as far as understanding of the page navigation service for Prism. Prism is a MVVM component for those who aren't familiar with it. MVVM framework for Xamarin Forms. And at the heart of Prism, in my opinion anyways, is the navigation service. So it'll do URI-based navigation. So you can throw it a URI such as this, and it will process it for you. Now, the one shortcoming is it won't do it with tabs. So that's what we're trying to do, is implement it with tabs. So that's where we're at. So that's why we've been working so heavily with this page navigation service for this session. We wanted to get to the bottom of how it processes that tab navigation and where our code's going to fit. I think we get a pretty good idea of where it's going to fit. Right here in this block, I think, is where we're going to build it out, and off to a good start. Okay, so I'm going to go back to my deep link page, select my item 2, subpage path. Cool, that's what I want it to be. So now all I have to do is the hardest part. Well, it's not actually really hard. We know that there's code in here that will actually do what we need it to, right? So I can get a page type. There's all kinds of code in here that will that's already baked into Prism and baked into the navigation service that will help me create that page type and add it to the stack. So that's it for now. I'm going to pick this back up on next session, probably on Saturday. So if you liked this session, please let me know. I'm on Twitter. Let us know on Twitch or on YouTube. And we'll follow this up with another session on Saturday. So thanks very much for joining, and I'll see you next time. Awesome, thanks. If you want to follow me on Twitter, it's my screen name is Dilbot9000. And of course, if you want to follow the user group, so give us a follow. You can find us on YouTube as well. I'll grab that link. That link. Which is supposed to be... YouTube's so funny. YouTube is very funny. At one point we had a vanity URL. Apparently we don't anymore. Follow us here as well.